Hi, it's Mike Sofka with What's Hot in Florida and both Mikes. I have a very special guest today. I'm going to introduce you to my guest. My guest name is Blue. Blue, how are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Can you let everybody know who you are?
All right. The proposition of fact of what my being is as stated. Unified Federation President. The acquisitional codes to enhance, protain, and emulate the advancements of mankind. The retrograding process also of reforming the confidential extraterrestrial information that has been behind the scenes. That also goes in with dealing with the Federation. I, as the Federation President, obtained to as well with militarized maneuvers. With Space Force, our certain unit is in a proposal on the extraterrestrial department. The extraterrestrial department inlays through core communication standards and helps with the protection and enhancement for mankind. But it is run on a confidentiality statistic. Not all of it cannot or can be emulated. The core depends on what it is and how it is transacted.
Okay, now you gave me a lot to unpack there, so bear with me here. Are you saying that you are, in reality, a being from another place?
Yes, an ultra realm of the dimensional 13th frequency overlay. Cylon and Celion Galaxy run through the divinity protocols in my Hathor mainframe, which runs through a deity format.
Okay.
And also,
now, none of that just went right over my head. Is there a simpler way that you can explain that to me, or no? I mean, I get it, but...
Yes. Energy co-enhanced to certain timelines will rectify certain humans into a proper signalization code, meaning that these will have certain powers and certain acquisitions to obtain to for that timeline.
Okay. Now like that brings an interesting question. You say that timeline. Are you suggesting that there's more than one timeline, that there's a parallel universe, or more than one dimension?
Yes, up to and including this current Earth realm. The timeline that exists here are on multiple dimensional sequencing codes. And because of that, each has a proposition for a new, better beginning. This is on a rectified scale for that and is going into that process. As such, the quantum age. Okay,
so, and again, let me back up just another second here. Are you born of this planet, or is this human being form that you have something you assumed, is something you assimilated? How does that work?
In supposed attribution, my family has obtained to me that government protocols went to their house a few years back saying that I was something else that found an acquisition. Other than that encoding, supposedly the shell form was from this planetary realm. But regardless of the attribute, the higher innovation wavelength of my sequencing code of the ETI status part was infused about 4 years ago, but in proclamizing higher standards since too. But since my childhood, I've dealt with them my whole life, and I've dealt with running through my altered dimensions in hyperdream stasis when I was a child unit.
So how did that first occur? Do you remember, do you have a first memory where you were like, hey, something's not right here, something's different, I'm special,
yes,
I can do...
I have physical core genetic enhancements from the Zeta Reticuli race. That's why I have marks on my body and certain types of encapsulated codes from them that they put inside my skin. This is a signalizing format and retribution of the beings that have been with high calling codes with my being for quite a while, for many years. On and off the paradox of effect they knew, as well as the higher divinity codes of what my placement being needed to intact here at this current time.
Okay, so somebody just joining us, somebody new to understanding any of this, or having a hope to understand it, because there's a lot of layers here I see and a lot to understand. Why should somebody believe you?
It's not just core belief, but when you say something, you say it, right? But it's more showing. I don't just say to say or talk to talk. I walk the walk. I prove it physically. Many have seen what I have done. And I have about 2 or 3 or 4 clients that I have taken up and into hypermolecular stasis grid forms to help with their healing waves as too. They know who I am and what I possess. It doesn't matter. You can say what you want to say, but it's providing the proof physically into what you've done to that other person that really wakes them up.
Okay. Now you had mentioned Space Force. I already know the 1 or 2 listeners that are gonna hit me up with this and say, if she's in Space Force, all that's confidential. She's not allowed to talk about those things. How do you address that?
Not all of it on my end is. It is only what pertains to my acquisition code as Federation President, what I can release on Facebook and Twitter. And to the allotment, I am also in bearing with certain high advanced schematics and blueprints that I'm in acquisition with other military and important people, up to including hypermodulated anti-gravity starpod units, which will replace the current formations of this planet, the wheels. Schematics of that and dealing with other acquisitions. Still hear something, my phone's shutting down on itself.
Uh-oh.
I will have to get back to you.
Okay. And there we have it. We lost Blue Phoenix. Maybe she'll be back in just a minute here. If not, I'm going to close it out right here. Hopefully she'll be able to get connectivity and rejoin us. Okay, we had a little mishap there. No big deal. We're right back off where we started from. We just had to change location a little bit, but you were talking about the mode of changing wheels on the planet Earth. Explain that again a little further.
Well, core enhancement coding for the neural wave paths for mankind to be able to rectify instead of using other types of vehicle attribution scale waves, meaning like gas, electric, all that. What the perimeters of what this pod unit will do is it will run on neuronic or neural technology. It runs through the mind and through core holographic scale waves. And the itinerary that is going to be in place in proposition, if effective, and if a certain company will accept the perimeters of these schematics, will help into a better proposal for mankind and the environment.
Is that something related to, you used the word Nora, is that related to Neuralink? Neural. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So is this like a chip or something that'll be embedded in the brain, or how does that happen?
I don't deal with technology that is an implement. If anything that would be placed on a core enhancement code can be placed and taken easily off, like a sticker. I don't insert. That's not a good proposal for mankind. There are better ways than that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to back up and unpack this a little bit and make it a little easier for some folks to follow. I just have a couple quick questions for you that I had picked up from what I've seen. And by the way, you're very fascinating, and this whole thing fascinates me. And excuse my naiveness about this whole topic, but I've introduced you as Blue, but you have many titles, and you gave those many titles before. Are you opposed to the term alien, or ET, or extraterrestrial, or visitor? Is there a
advanced intellect?
Advanced intellect. Okay, so do those other words offend? Or those other words not pertain to you, or?
They don't offend me, but the way humans can perceive that type of innovation code can go a little bit better.
Okay.
Because many types of beings have names, and they are different genetics through that. So
now, I think doing a little research I was able to do, I thought you had mentioned you're Arcturian. Is that right? Did I say that correctly? Arcturian?
Well, Arcturian is the actual ether part of the spectrum of what humans would call it. But it is the actual coding of the Zeta Reticuli race, which is a certain type of gray.
Okay, so you say the aether, is that like what we would understand to be a human spirit?
The aether is the form of life itself, the elemental realm of life itself, innovation sequencing code of the core, central sun. The aether exists through all life forms, and it brings about the fabrication of life and maintaining it right. The aether is the same thing as a proclamation grid that goes through the energetic sequencing codes in mankind and other holographic mainframes. It coexists through the quantum retrosphere of the cosmos.
Are there others like you on our planet Earth?
Fusion statistics of higher integrated beings, yes. But on the acquisition code of the mainframe, no. Because there is only one female code of life that needs to be set and signalized for one planetary grid on that timeline. Okay. But there are other retribution wavelengths helping and assisting through the Federation here. I'm not the only one.
Okay. Now, you used the word wavelength there, and I've been kind of keen as of late of listening to different frequencies and wavelengths involving in music and sound and so forth. And I've even seen some of those things on YouTube. Is that the same thing that you're talking about when you say wavelength or frequency?
It could coexist with the same thing, but the wavelengths that I am initiating, think about Schumann's resonance. And think about the core energetic frequencies of the electromagnetic grid itself. Magnitude that spectrum into something of the aether, and that can qualify as another type of intact modulation.
Okay. Now, for the layman here who may think of people that are not of this earth, or forms or beings not of this earth, they think of certain images. I'll give you an example, like little green men, or you had mentioned grays, or what have you.
Almost people. We don't like when humans say little green men, because Zeta Reticuli are not green, and they're not considered little. They can grow. They can be 3 to 5 feet in length and look almost human in a way. The perception of their face form. Okay. They have been in contact with Area 51, and they're of a silver grayish type. They're green, and an attribution goes through a reptilian. They're the types of beings that have green innovation nodes.
I was going to ask you about that. You had mentioned Area 51, and I missed part of that. Are you saying that the Greys are part of Area 51 or no?
There are many types of wavelengths that deal with that, including Force Itinerary, but things have been moved in acquisition, and there are other reasons that cannot be contributed to mankind right now. Why? But it is all for the betterment of mankind when it deals with the Force Itinerary.
Is your background as president of the Federation, do you have opposition? Is there an enemy? Is there an evil? Is there a force, a dark side? Who is that, and what's that about?
That is a certain running spectrums of this planetary grid right now. The elite, hyper-draconian white alpha species. The ones that have been trying to control a grid mainframe without provocation, without a betterment, relaying out a bad spectrum. And behind the scenes, we're doing our best as the Federation intends to help plan and proclamize mankind's next protection protocol without their interference.
Now that's a great question. Why? Why mankind? Why here? I understand the universe to be very vast. Why, out of everywhere in the universe, why here?
Because this is the time for mankind to have their freedom, as was written in the book of old.
In the book of what?
Old.
What is that?
Ancient book of light. Humans would call it the Bible, but there's a bigger spectrum than that signalizes what was taken out of that rectification code.
Is that the Akashic record? Is that the same thing?
The Innovation Bible Sequencing Code. The New Testament, if you will. Think about the new beginning, but think about how a lot of that was taken out and removed from society. Not all of it was framed right.
Now, I follow a series on TV and on the internet, and it's called Ancient Aliens. Are you familiar?
Yes, I've heard of that.
Okay. What's your stance on that show, on that program, on what they show and what they don't show?
Well, I don't watch much of the show, but I've heard of it. I'm on my own acquisition code.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't watch much of the show. I've heard of it.
Okay. Are there basically they maintain that like the pyramids were built by someone not of this earth?
Trilateral platforms from the ancient deities of old and infrastructure settlized to certain species of old, including the Zetas and including Hyperlyrian and Palladian structured species that up to and including on a better intact freedomized society for mankind.
Now, I've maintained with one of my associates, my partner on my podcast and video here, that there is another life form. There is something else. I've maintained that it has been here on Earth. I've maintained that it does exist elsewhere. He doesn't like to get involved in that and says, no. So this is in essence to try to open him up and maybe open some other people's minds. So
all right.
When you had mentioned that there is an opposition, there is a dark force, is that present here on Earth? The elites, that's an active thing. There's literally
dark
a good
forces
versus
here
evil.
are currently on Earth, yes. And one in proposition on this interface of effect, this sector where I stay, meaning this country.
Okay, so out of all the places in the universe, we're not the only ones then. There's a lot of other civilizations.
Yes, there's a lot of ultra realms. There are hyper civilizations besides the cosmos, the inner realms as well. Runs through Atlantean societies, ancient terraforming realms that go and coexist to the Talos societies. Mount Shasta, coexistence through certain tunnels in Mammoth Cave, fabrications that deal with certain innovation sequencing codes through Antarctica as well as Pacific Ocean. These run through tunnel sectors and under paradigm shifts. So we're not dealing with just what's up above. There are things underneath too.
So when you say underneath, you mean in a literal sense, like inside the earth, or did you?
Yes, physically and an authorical status because of what coexists between two paradigm shifts.
Now, recently, I've seen the United States government with revelation of what they call aliens, extraterrestrials, whatever. But I've seen a slow dripping of information out. Like they'll put out a video and it'll go out and then it'll all of a sudden, this has been out for 2 years. We've told you. Is that to lessen the blow so mankind's minds won't be blown so they can handle it?
Yes. As such as my acquisitional effect too. Certain placements between whoever and whatever is stating outwards can only be placed on certain timelines. It can't be placed outwards all at once. Mankind's neural capacity wavelengths will not be able to intake all that information at once because of the ensnarement process that was placed upon them throughout the generations.
We had mentioned just a few minutes ago that there are other civilizations in the universe. Where do we stand on that hierarchy? Are we a laughing joke in the universe? Are we about average? Are we above average?
Right now, mankind is on the lower paradox, meaning they really need to shift their gear into get high gear. And that includes retribution of proposing, putting in the right placements for leadership here and not the wrong ones.
You mentioned leadership, and I did stumble across something on one of your social platforms here. You called your quantum twin Donald Trump. Can you explain?
Rectification code processing skill wave, I can only say so much, but that only coexists through the cosmic part, not the Republican. So if people were going to want to already go against conflict on me on that and say, oh, you're Republican, you're over. No. That has nothing to do with that part of what he did, okay? What I'm dealing with is what's coming next and what people will understand, that he has done something behind the scenes better this whole entire time. But it's not that time yet to open it up because of the dark beings at play.
Now, I'm going to totally spitball here and throw a dart at the dartboard here blindfolded. I keep hearing the word quantum and I keep hearing that, and then I hear Trump. And then to get from quantum to Trump, in my mind, I take the Q from quantum and drop off the rest of quantum and just make it Q. Is Q or the Q following or movement have anything to do with it?
It's all part of rectifying the betterment for mankind. It is all part of the betterment of that age.
So has the person or persons or being or what have you who's been matriculating out this Q stuff and then all of a sudden stopped, was this person a being of this world? Was it a person?
No, more or less probably an infusion statistic of a higher being placed on prophecy to help attain what needs to be placed here.
So they've seen the future. They know what's happening. They know what's going to happen.
Time travel initialization code like myself, yes. Rectified from another altered time realm.
This is blowing my mind. This is crazy. This is blowing my mind. How long have you been able to communicate this? You're very articulate. You can communicate what you're talking about here. How long have you been on this mission, or is it called a mission?
Since as of 2 years ago, since I started the mainframe delegation sequencing code in Space Force on my itinerary. Even before that perimeter, as of an induction effect, what my higher in being needs to outlay here.
Now, what can we do? What's the next step for humanity, mankind? What can we do to take the next step?
What you can do to take the next step is to make sure that you're not heaping the same provocations in outlay, meaning those certain leaders that are causing bad sequencing codes on this realm need to be justified of their actions and set out from their perimeters. If they cannot induce a better perimeter, then they need to move and let those that do have the common ethical sense that people will believe in, like myself and others, to maintain a better realm.
So it's more or less, it is, like I've heard the term used before, in reality, it is truly an awakening.
Yes, the core awakening for the process of mankind's next evolutionary stage and removal of the bad ingrading units.
Do we have any reason to fear the future?
Only if the retribution wavelengths of mankind go on a lower scale and keep going that way. Unless they really pull themselves together and wake up and understand that there are things that are a lot better than the current paradigms here. And that includes the medicinals as well. Quantum med beds made, people. They're made, but they're not going to be brought out. There are wrong beings that are making this planet bad.
Well, it sounds like you're telling me there's a lot of money to be made in big pharma by keeping people sick, and that these med beds would cure disease.
Yes, and trans-inducing them into something they can't get out of, an ensnarement, if you will.
This is all just blowing my mind. I could spend hours talking to you, I'm sure. I'm going to have many more questions come up after this meeting here. Is it possible that maybe we could reconnect again on another time?
Yes, it is.
That would be wonderful, because I'm sure I'm going to get bombarded with questions from listeners, from viewers, and so forth. What is the best way somebody can get in touch with you directly? Do you want them to search you out on socials or what?
I have Twitter. I have Facebook. And if you want to look me up on Facebook, it's under Blue Crystalline Phoenix, BLU, Crystalline, CRYSPILLINE, Phoenix, PHOENIX, I believe, or the other way around. You'll find me out.
Perfect.
Now, I mean, there's not many people that will have
Perfect.
the innovation line. It'll have an actual picture of a Zeta in front of it and the Unified Federation President symbol. That's
awesome
fine.
Stuff. Awesome.
I have one on Twitter as well. And if people want to look into my Twitter, the hookup should be through my Facebook mainframe.
Awesome. It's been wonderful to speak with you, Blue. I look forward to touching base with you again. I'm sure I'm missing out a lot of questions and people are screaming at this right now, but I will reconnect with you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Okay.
Thank you. Good day.
All right.